Hello, it's Nikki and welcome back to this video. On a Thursday, I talk all about your future self. And for me, it's really important to be actively creating my future. That sounds very bold and profound when I say it in that way. But I guess that has always stemmed from my childhood. I wanted to actively participate and create my life. I really hope that I wouldn't have that sense of regret or suddenly wake up and dramatic door, suddenly wake up and go, what have I been doing all this time? Now, there have been moments where I've had exactly that. What have I been doing all this time? How long have I been here? Why am I stuck? Or why can't I let this thing go, which is relatively small compared to other things? Of course, I'm not always in that moment of, I can do this is great, because I'm a human being. And sometimes as well, we must say that as much as we want to actively create our future self and our future life, sometimes life throws us a curveball that we're really not expecting, we have no control over, and it can be a lot. So if you're in that place right now where you're like, it's all a lot, you can watch this, you cannot, but I hope that things become smoother. So I want to talk about investing in yourself, because first and foremost, I want to say that there is a lot of nonsense about investing in yourself, and there's a lot of really toxic language on the internet. Now, I will caveat this first and foremost, that this is a relatively new conversation. Investing in yourself, especially as a woman, is a new one because, well, in our lifetime, there were moments where you couldn't have a mortgage unless you had a man's signature on it. Or if you look back to your schooling, certainly mine, I went to a local comprehensive. There was no financial education. There was no sense of, you can be whatever you want to be. It's okay for you to be ambitious and bold and audacious and the best version of yourself. It was very much pick a lane, love, and stay in it. So there has been a lot of deconditioning going on. So with that, sometimes there are going to be mistakes made, or there are times where I look back on my own content, for example, I'm like, oof, yeah, I wouldn't say that now. Or certainly post-pandemic, there's a different flavor, there's a different way, there's a more of an understanding. So we are all learning through this. However, in the background, there is still this conversation around, unless you invest in yourself to a point where almost you can't breathe, you're so far out of your comfort zone, that's the only way to do it. I'm going to swear now, so if you want to switch it off in front of kids, I call bullshit on that. Because often these people who are saying that you have to go all in, you have to do all of the things, otherwise you're not serious. These are people who do not have any other responsibilities, who are simply focusing on themselves, on their goals, and doing that. They are saying things like, I don't go to birthday parties. All I do in this phase of my life is work. Now, that's great if you're 22 and you can live in your mum's basement or whatever the story is. But for me, I am a 42-year-old woman. I have a partner. I have a home. I have kids. I have responsibilities. I have places and spaces where I need to be on, well, Monday to Friday, certainly, taking my children to and from school. So to simply have that binary version of, unless I go all in and I get my back so far against the wall, I'm not serious, does not work for my circumstance, does not work for the unpredictability of life at this stage, having children, doing the things. There is nothing sexy for me about going, oh my God, I was like down to my last 20 quid and I couldn't get money out of the back. No, 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 no. Nothing great is happening from that situation. And it will never be a situation that I will be in because well, I'll give you one example. My son recently, we got the call from school, and we got the missed call. You know, when you get two in a row and you're like, oh, okay, I've got to phone you back quick. He basically sliced his whole kneecap open, and it was, yeah, it was a moment. But the fact that my partner happened to be at home that day, he could go and get him. I could go and get Nurofen. I could go and get extra bandages, and I had that money available to me. That is where my priority goes. And I just think about all of those moments where people say this really toxic information. It does not help anybody. So if you are feeling like you have to get to that stage to be serious, I will challenge it every single time. Also, the fact that I am happy in my life actually helps my business. And I think this sexy version of rock bottom, once again, doesn't help people. I don't want to be in rock bottom before I do something about it. I can't allow myself to get to rock bottom because I have people that need me. So any of these stories that are clickbaity, you don't have to believe them. Also, when you are in that moment of your back being against the wall, these people are nowhere to be found. They're not saying, oh, don't worry. Like, you know, you said that you'd sign up for this thing and now you can't afford it. They will take you to court. Yeah. So do what is right for you. So in order to be serious, there is not one size, there's not one price, there's not one package, and there's not one capacity that fits all. And I want to talk about this because over the years, I have invested in myself in so many different ways. From booking a day with somebody, to a strategy session, to can I work with you for a month, from a 3-month self-study program, to a year-long experience. Workshops, books, podcasts, watching all the YouTube videos. I have done all of the things. And they've all been really useful in their own way. And I haven't necessarily noticed that there is a correlation of the more money you spend, the more valuable it is, or the more life-changing it is for you. So don't allow people to say, well, unless you pay 50 grand, like you're not doing these things. Sometimes you can read a book and in chapter 3, you read a 2-line sentence and you go, oh, that's what it is. That's what it is. And that sentence stays with you again and again and again. And you notice it in all of the circumstances in your life. So over the years, I have invested in myself. But it hasn't always been in the form of coaching or kind of the investments that we see now. To give you a bit of a backstory, when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be an actor. I also knew I would do other things as well because I was multi-passionate, as Marie Forleo says. But that was my first way into my career. And yet there wasn't really a career community at that time. I didn't know any actors. I didn't know anybody who was making money from it. We didn't have the internet. We had Sky TV, but like a long way into my teenage years. So I had the 4 channels essentially. But also I had local theatre. Where I grew up also is about 12 minutes away from the motorway. And fortunately, the way that my hometown was positioned is that you're around lots of regional theatre. So Doncaster, Sheffield, Leeds, Hull, Manchester at a push, Nottingham, you can get to lots of different places relatively easy. And gratefully, my mum and dad liked going to the theatre as well. So they would take me to see things and allow me to experience those things. However, there were times where I was just at school and I was just studying for my mocks, or my mum had gone back to work, so things were very simple in our lives. You know, it was like, yeah, you're playing netball after school, and then you're going home, and then you're having your dinner, and then you're going to bed and reading your book until lights out. It was that sort of normality of life. But what I also realized about investment was really understanding the kind of conversations I had, or paying attention to how people made phone calls. That was a fascination of mine, how people conducted themselves. I learned so much of those things. So even though they weren't traditional investments, it was an investment of my time and paying attention. So if you are at a stage where you know you want to make moves, but you don't have a spare whatever in the bank to do the thing, focus on what it is that you can do. There are always things that you can do. If you have access to the internet right now, use it. My goodness. If you don't have a computer, if you don't have an internet connection, go to your local library. Honestly, it's one of the greatest places. So, I also want to say is that when you're thinking about investing in yourself, it's totally normal to have a mixed platter of excitement / overwhelm. What am I doing? This feels so far out of my comfort zone. Is this a good idea? And to have all of those things going on. And those things are important to have side by side, because if you're just in the excitement thing of like, yeah, great, I'll just spend the money, I'll just do the thing, that looks fun, great, you may end up going, oh, actually, this wasn't quite the right decision. And of the 8 modules, as much as I like this person, only 2 of them are relevant to my business. So maybe I made a wrong decision here. It's good to have that caution. It's good to have those hesitation. It's good to have that time and space to feel like you can read the small print and really make a discerning decision. However, there comes a point where you have to make a decision. And not making a decision is actually making a decision too. Taking yourself out of the game, saying, I'll do it next year, or I was going to do it and then I didn't, and like, oh gosh, I've now missed the deadline. That is a decision. And what I always do in this moment is get very clear about who my future self is. What do I want to be, do, have, and feel, say in a year? Is me making this decision and taking this step right here and right now going to get me there? And is it going to get me there faster? And sometimes that has just been the nugget that I've needed to go, I know it feels scary. I know it feels scary. But you know what? Not doing it, it's going to feel really rubbish. A year from now, being in the same spot, rubbish. It's not going to feel great. And I have had that sense of regret. Oh, I should have done this last year. Why am I still in the same spot? And I've learned how to make those decisions in a way that feels really good to me. So now let's talk about you. Where do you need help? Where do you need support? And I'm going to give you some places that you might want to think about in terms of your next level of growth. If you want to work one-on-one, of course, I'm here. This is part of my business model. I can help you. You can explore the options. You can go into my shop. You can look at my one-to-one stuff. Or if you're not sure what any of it would be useful, send me a message. We'll have a call and we can go from there. So the first thing I want you to check out, or actually, before we get into that, think about your goals. Think about where you're going next. What's on your priority list? Where do you want to see the growth? What's happening for you? If you haven't checked out my goal setting series, please do so. There's a whole playlist. It will really help you in making decisions and really connecting with your dreams once again. So firstly, I look at education. So my gaps of knowledge. What are the pieces of the puzzle that I do not know? And again, it's okay not to know. The education that you and probably I had is outdated in lots of different ways. We have to be different thinkers. I notice it with my children. What they're being taught, the way that they're being taught, of course, has changed over the last 25, 30 years. So paying attention to the gaps of your knowledge and highlighting them and really recognizing them is going to be useful. So instead of going, I don't know, I'll just give it a go, a much more empowered place to be is to say, actually, in truth, this whole part, I'm not really sure about. So noticing how you can get help and support in those areas is going to be really powerful. Also, somebody who has been doing that thing for 20 years might be able to share 20 years of knowledge in a 1-hour session. How great would that feel? Again, would your future self enjoy that? I'm sure she would. Number 2, are you needing to get into possibility investment? Now, when I was 4, I knew I wanted to go to drama school. I know that sounds really wild, but from that age, and I remember it clearly, I'll share the story another time. I remember it clearly. So as I was going through my childhood and then my teenage years, I was basically trying to navigate a road or stay on a road that would ultimately take me to drama school. However, growing up in a village and then suddenly going to London at 16, which is what I thought I would be doing, and my parents were like, you will not be going to London at 16. I went to 18. That felt like a big jump. And also my surroundings and the people who I was hanging out with were not thinking about doing something similar. And so even making moves, like when I was 16, I did the National Youth Music Theatre, where I signed up for this short course and I went to Leeds, I think like every other Friday when I was 16, and trained, and that was incredible. That was so powerful because it got me into that possibility of like, oh, this is what's happening. I also was a big fish in a small pond. So I'm not going to say like I was the best or anything like that, but the fact that I was taking it seriously as a career, I was in a different headspace to somebody who just likes to have a bit of a fun on a Saturday afternoon. And what happens, and maybe this is your sign to maybe invest, is that when you're in that place of being a big fish in a small pond, that's quite a fun place to be, because you're at the top of the tree. You're like, yeah, I'm getting all the things and this is really great and my ego is polished and taken care of. And that is usually a point where you need to have that moment where you can look around and go, oh, wow, everybody else is really good as well. And then following that, I did a summer school at the end of the first year of A-levels or school, or I can't remember, when I was 16 and then when I was 17. So I got myself into that groove of, I knew that it wasn't going to be a university training. What would it be like to do this all day, every day? Could I hack it? Could I take the pace? The third one was, or is, I want you to think about the environments that you are in and really make sure that you are supported and understood and championed. And I've noticed this over the years from being a mum, is that actually sitting around, especially in those years when my children just were not sleeping in any shape or form, sitting around with other mums being sad about how little sleep that we got was not the greatest use of my time. I have a few mum friends that I really enjoy hanging out with. I was going to say playing with, but hanging out with. And then I also realized, well, I've got to put together this toolkit for my environment so I can be connected. So things like when we were in our old house, in front of our bed, we had a big fireplace. And I began to put imagery. I had this big sort of frame thing, imagery above the fireplace. So even though I would kind of stir in the morning or whatever time of night it was, and I'd be like, oh gosh, I'm so tired and what a long day and how is this all going to happen and will I ever sleep again? I could look at that and I could really take charge of my environment and have that reminder of, no, keep going, keep your eye on the ball. And it was such a simple thing, but it really helped me. Number 4, your identity. I'm turning over, you can tell I've got big notes. Identity. So what I mean by this is the identity of somebody who sells, who is creative, who figures it out, who is multi-passionate, who is resilient. And I think what can happen is, certainly something I identified, and I've had it in several times, like when I went to drama school, I realized that even if I went to see my friends who are at uni, I couldn't have that massive night out on a Friday and a Saturday, because by the time I was in dance class on a Monday morning, which was 2 hours long, I just would be not well and I wouldn't be fresh and I wouldn't be ready to go. So thinking about those things that you need to do in order to support your dreams will really help you make those investments and really make you conscious of where you spend your time, what you're doing, etc. I also had that, another thing is I realized when I knew I wanted to work freelance around my kids, spending time with people who were like, well, I'm on maternity leave, so yeah, let's go shopping to Selfridges today. I was like, going shopping to Selfridges is not a great use of my time. I should see those friends for a coffee and then go and work on my business and my dreams. And yes, at times you're like, wow, this feels really boring, but you know, it swings and roundabouts, it's sacrifices in different moments. Finally, this has been one of the biggest things for me when I've chosen to invest in myself. And it encapsulates lots of the other things that have come along with it. My belief in myself, my blind spots, and my mindset to succeed. We can all get really caught and overwhelmed and consumed by daily life, responsibilities, circumstances, all of these things that are going on. And we can get stuck. I know that there have been certain times in my life where I've just been stuck. I've been like on a hamster wheel going round and round, and I needed to break that cycle. And sometimes when I've been in a certain place for a number of years or months, I've had that moment where I've had to reconnect and re-believe that something is different. Or I've needed a coach or somebody to say, why do you do that? And for me to go, and sometimes you feel defensive. Well, I've always done that. It works for me. And they say, what could be an alternative to this? And sometimes it's you saying, oh, I could not do it. And suddenly then you open up possibilities. And as much as it's lovely to have friends and family who just say you're great or you're doing so well, I know personally I've needed somebody, and I've chosen this very carefully, but sometimes a bit of tough love is really good for me because they see something bigger for me than maybe I see for myself. And that's powerful. If that is you, if you are ready to invest in yourself, and I'm not saying you have to do it at the highest level, but if you need a session or a boost or time carved out for you or an online course, or maybe you just want to subscribe to this channel, my Substack, and just have that sense that each and every day, you know that you'll get something from me that will help you to create this next layer of life and business. I've got you. I'm here. All the links are down below. Equally, you can subscribe and check out my work with me options and my shop options too. Lots of love. I'll see you next time. Bye.